Hi, and welcome to Hope for the Family, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholic women. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. In this series, recovered family members from our community share how they've been able to find peace and freedom as the loved ones of alcoholics, with your host, me, Laurie Evans, also a loved one of an alcoholic. For more information about our family support group, including weekly meetings, please visit magdalenhouse.org/family. We are so glad you're here, and thanks for listening. Good afternoon. My name is Laurie, and I'm the host of Hope for the Family. And today I have with me Lauren, who is on our family support committee. This month we're interviewing Lauren because not only is she the daughter of an alcoholic, she also has a family member who is a recovered alcoholic. And we're going to talk to her more about that. I'm really glad you're here today, Lauren. I wanted to ask you, how did you find the Magdalen House and get connected to the Magdalen House?
Okay, well, hi, by the way, I'm Lauren, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Laurie, for asking me, and thank you for doing this. You're amazing. How did I find the Magdalen House? So I was in another group, and I had a sponsor through another type of family group, and we were carrying the message at different places, and we were asked to carry the message at something called the Magdalen House, and it was at the other location, the first location at Redwood Circle, and it was a little tiny group. There was very few people. Not a lot of people knew about it. But as it grew, there was so many family members that were just really struggling. They didn't, have an outlet, and they didn't have anywhere to go. And so it just kept growing and growing. And so we grew with it, and here we are.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, it was a good old
It was a really small group. And I remember, like, some days it would just be like me and you, or you and Diane, or whoever, just sitting there like waiting for people to come in, and they might not have made it. But now that COVID hit and we started the Zoom meetings and we were able to expand, and now we have 2 meetings that go on at the same time, and this group is just growing.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud to be a part of it with you.
Me too.
So, Lauren, I know you've worked the 12 steps and you have a sponsor that you talk to very often. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what qualifies you to do this program. And then after that, the second part of that question is what made you decide to work the steps. But I want to start with just you and how this came about.
Okay, great. Thanks. So originally it was growing up in a family of alcoholism. So it was both my stepdad and my mom. And so first my stepdad, and then later on, my mom. And I'm the oldest of 5 girls. So it was a bit chaotic, to say the least. And, that progressed, and, stepdad was in jail. My mom had my youngest sister at home, and we had noticed, a lot of patterns, and, we knew that she was, drinking and doing other things, and we knew it was out of control.
How old were you at this time?
I was about 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you still had one sister in high school.
Yeah, we had one sister that was 16, yeah. And then my other sisters were ranging from like 18 to 22. And there's 5 of us, and we kind of lived all over the place, but we had all come together and decided, I had a professor at the time that in one of my psychology classes, and he said, I had been really upset one day and had stayed after class and was crying, and, didn't want to go to my next class, and was really worried about my mom and my sister. And it was to the point where, we didn't think she could take care of her. She wasn't paying bills. They were about to lose their house. She looked real, real bad. And, just a lot. And so he said, well, hey, I know some people in the Dr. Phil crew. And I'm like the show, Dr. Phil? And he's like, yeah, I just happen to be connected with one of the guys that does the intervention. If you want me to connect him, to him. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, sure. And I was full force. So I took charge from Dr. Phil on, and I told my grandma about it, and she was real worried about my mom, so we hired them, and they flew out, and they did a full training session at a hotel with us on how to do the intervention, and we did one, and it was like at 2 or 3 in the morning. My uncle came, all of us kids came and woke her up, and we did the typical, you read something like how her addiction has affected us, and what we want her to do, and kind of what our expectation is for her, which was only one thing, for her to go to treatment. So she did. I had picked out the place and researched it, and she went, and she did only stay about a month, which wasn't bad, but she did leave against medical advice and went right back into it. And a lot was learned. The reason that I started going to a family group was one of the counselors there had said, hey, the family has been through a lot because of this. You guys should go and get your own help. And she gave me a list of meetings. And I did go once or twice. It just wasn't something I was willing to put time into, and I was too angry to do anything for her anymore. So that wasn't the place I was in then. So that's kind of what brought me there. And then eventually I started, I think the second part was, why did I work a 12-step program?
Yes.
That's kind of what got me doing that.
Yeah. How did you come about working a 12-step program?
So although my mom did not, stay recovered, she did have some good seeds planted there. She did not stay recovered. So that, had its set of consequences for, the whole family. But I ended up much later on marrying a recovered alcoholic. And so he would always talk to me about his program, and he had a sponsor, and he helped guys, and, carried the message everywhere, and it was all new to me, and it was really neat. But I had all these fears and issues and control and obsession issues, a lot of the reason because of, the way I grew up. And so I really wanted to control his program.
Because you felt responsible for your sisters when you were growing up, and then that just kind of moved into...
Oh, for sure. And fear, was a big part of it. It was like, is he going to relapse? Am I responsible for that? Could I possibly, be standing in the way of that, or could I help that? Maybe I can manage his life a little bit, make sure he goes to meetings, or, doesn't hang out with certain people, and that'll keep him sober. Like before me, he wasn't able to do that, which he was fine. So he suggested that I go to something called Al-Anon, which is a support for families of alcoholics. And I wasn't into it, but I was really into him. So I ended up going, and it really wasn't for me in the beginning. I was really just doing it for him, if I look back. But I ended up hearing a lot of really peaceful sounding people, even though their families may or may not be sober. And so I kind of got interested. And it was also an outlet for me to be honest about kind of where I'd come from. And that was not the case anywhere else in my life. So that was where I started. And, things progressed, and I found that I had more and more of an issue with control. And so I had heard a couple of people there, quite a bit of them had worked the steps and had sponsors themselves. And I was like, well, that's crazy. You guys did the program too. And they were some of the healthiest people I'd met, and some of the happiest. And so I was going, well, this couldn't hurt. Let me just try it. So I got a sponsor and worked the steps. And like we talked about in your first question, that's how I heard about, was through the 12-step is carrying the message and being helpful to others, is how I started going to Maggie's. So we do that all the time, is try to help other people with our experience.
I know
it's amazing.
After I went through the 12 steps and still today, it's kind of like a burning desire to be here helping people. Yeah. On top of that, the community and the fellowship that we have, I call you guys my tribe. It's amazing. And I do love, helping people.
Oh yeah. It's a bond that it's different than anything else. And I know if I can't get a hold of my sponsor, I'm calling Laurie and going to say, hey, this is going on. And I know that I can be like gut level honest about things that I can't be honest, with, coworkers or friends who might give me advice that's ill-advised or not based on recovery or with an alcoholism, background. So I think it's really important to have that.
Yeah, it's just such a great community, and you're right. And it's vice amazing. Versa. If I can't get a hold of my sponsor, I call you. And I remember one of the first things you told me is, I was like, well, I was telling my friends at work what was going on. You're like, okay, stop talking to your friends at work about your alcoholic, you know, and that was such great advice because they didn't go through the shipwreck that we went through. Yeah. Right. And so.
Well, and it's the same thing and it really helped me because I can't help, I can't talk to somebody else. I can't help the alcoholic because I haven't been through what they've been through and they haven't been through what I've been through, Right. And we'll get more into that, but similar.
Sure. So, well, speaking of alcoholism and things like that, there are so many stigmas surrounding the disease, right? And because if someone tells us they have cancer, the first thing we do is feel bad for them, right? Right. If we find out someone has alcoholism as their disease, we judge them. We judge their actions. We judge them. I did it. I know you did too.
Mm-hmm.
How has Maggie's helped you with the stigmas around that, and how do you handle it out in the real world?
That's a good question. And I'm glad we're talking about that. I think number one is the education piece. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of things that I thought either through movies or just gossip or friends or whatever that, you see people drinking or using or whatever it is, and you see this action taking place. And I was very judgmental about it because I'm thinking, well, if they know that they shouldn't drink, which some people don't know. They don't know yet that they are an alcoholic, or they haven't admitted that, or, that's not something that they know yet. Why are they drinking so much? Why are they, what's going on with them? Why can't they just stop if they're having all these consequences? What is wrong with them? And I was just so caught up in judgment about it because I don't have that. I don't have that issue, and I never have. But I had all these people in my life that did, and it's quite common. And I just really didn't have a lot of education around it. And I even took a class in college. It was like drugs, behavior, and modern society. Mm-hmm. And we learned about stats and all kinds of stuff. And some of it was eye-opening, but the way they describe it, at Maggie's is more of a mental illness. And that's really, really important, is that mental component, that obsession. It's not just the physical allergy, which the, doctors explain in the big book. It's talking about a physical allergy where the body metabolizes, the alcohol differently, which I'd never heard before coming. I'd never had it explained that way. I didn't know that their body actually reacted differently to the alcohol itself. I just thought they were making really bad choices. And then once that happens, there are choices involved, but there's a mental obsession around it that creates a pattern that they can't stop because of that lack of control. And I just didn't understand any of that. And it was not only drawn out for me physically, like on a whiteboard, but it was just explained so well. They showed me in the book, there was evidence and numbers surrounding it. It was things I could understand. And so it really was just the education piece. It was intelligent, and I could understand it and I could relate to it. And so after that, I could have empathy. And I think it makes it to where I can be a little bit more honest talking about it. So if my family member who is sober and I are out somewhere and, they're not drinking, I can say, or he can say, hey, I'm not drinking because, I have trouble with that. I don't drink anymore. It doesn't do well with me or whatever. And before, it wasn't so much that, and it would be kind of a secretive thing or kind of something we didn't talk about. But as we've gotten, healthier in the program and more fit in this program, it's like we're not ashamed of it. Like we wouldn't be ashamed of, any other disease that we might have that somebody might inquire about. And now it's like kind of like you were saying, you kind of want to scream at it, like you want to tell everybody, because there's so many people that need help with this, and it's nothing to be ashamed of,
And there's a solution.
Oh yeah, and some of the coolest people I know are recovered alcoholics now. They're using their lives to really help people. So I think it's amazing. So I definitely think there's a lot of stigmas. I think Maggie's is doing a great job to break those down, and to really help educate people, so that the stigmas can create pathways for more recovery.
Yeah, I really agree with you. And
yeah,
so I'm proud to be associated with
Me too.
Maggie's, and I'm glad, and you are too.
Are you a loved one of an alcoholic? Our family support group serves as a community for friends, loved ones, and family members of alcoholics to learn about alcoholism, understand how to help an alcoholic, and experience an improved quality of life regardless of the alcoholic's recovery. We have weekly support meetings that meet virtually and in person, as well as a monthly speaker meeting. To find out more about our family support group, visit magdalenhouse.org/family.
So, being a part of Maggie's family support, and I guess it's been like 7 or 8 years. Or,
God, has it? That's
10,
crazy. No way.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a while.
How has the family support group, and we're including everyone in that, all of our colleagues and committee members, helped you in your family relationship?
That's a good question. So, man, that's so hard to measure. It's from day to day to big events. Day to day, I would say just not only being given the opportunity to work the steps, which I wouldn't known about, which created a relationship with my higher power. I didn't have that before. So some people might have, coming in this room, they might have had a relationship with God and a reliance. I didn't. So this created an opportunity for me to develop that and really rely on that relationship. So that has changed my life. So instead of me taking control of all these situations, I'm allowing a higher power to. So it's created a lot of peace for me. It's helped my kids because of that peace that I have. It's helped my family members who are struggling, or even the ones that aren't. Because, even though they're sober, the issues don't go away. I mean, they're still who they are. So they're still going to get, irritable or selfish or whatever it is. They're still going to have they still have their personality. So it's really great that I can have peace and have a program of my own. And most recently, we had an issue with my family member that's not recovered. And it was an issue that, we all ended up sitting down, my sisters and family, and we all ended up sitting down and, talking openly about this and kind of talking to her about options and kind of what's going on with her. And if I didn't have this program, and if this wasn't something that this community was not something that I was a part of, I don't think that conversation would have gone as smoothly with me kind of leading it, because I think it could have gone, gotten kind of controlling, and you need to do this. And the truth is that if they're not in a place and they're not ready, and that's not something they're going to do on their own, it isn't going to be helpful. So and I was able to say that really lovingly and say, hey, if this isn't where you're at, we love you and that's fine, but we're just telling you where we're at. So it's really just been really helpful, the empathy that it allows you to have for the alcoholic, and the empathy for our family members, so we're really able to use our experience to help other people. So
yeah, that is one thing that's amazing. It's, before I went through the 12 steps, my go-to was shame.
Oh yeah.
And I really regret that, but I didn't know any better.
No.
Now that I go through the 12 steps, that I went through the 12 steps, I noticed that I do have more empathy.
Yeah.
Not only for alcoholics, but for people who aren't doing what I think they should be doing at Target, or we're driving driving down the road. Yeah, any
That's
of
the worst.
it. So yeah.
Why can't you drive like me?
Just do everything like me, and life would be better, right?
It does allow you to have peace with it allows you to be more patient and empathetic towards just all people, because you kind of think, oh, well, you never know what they're going through.
Exactly.
You never know.
Did you pray before you went into your latest sit down and talk with your family?
Oh yeah. Well, that was like a week of praying. I mean, this was like, do I want to be here kind of thing? Is this something I need to be a part of? Is this going to damage the person, or is this going to be helpful? And I was asked by the family to be there. And so, I thought, at the very least, I'm very glad that I was there, because it was like I got to say what I wanted to say. And if anything was to happen, I've said everything I want to say. I was able to be honest but loving. It was very different than the intervention that we had a long time ago.
With Dr. Phil?
Yeah, with Dr. Phil. And he wasn't there, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was his intervention crew, which is a different crew. It would be cool if he was there.
That's a good story if he was, right?
Yeah. So, it would have been cool. I love him. But yeah, I mean, it was really neat to kind of see full circle. It isn't neat that, we were back in that situation, but, it happens. And this is a process. And I know that with other family members, relapse and people not being sober can happen. And it's unfortunate. It's part of it.
So speaking of relapses. Yeah. I know, just because I know you, that you have been through a relapse with your recovered family member. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear about how the program helped you, how family support helped you from Maggie's house, and just what that felt like, because I admired everything in the way you handled that. I was just in awe of how you did that, and I would love for other people to hear how that went. Cool,
thanks. Well, thank you, by the way. Looking back, it was kind of an out of body experience. It's one of those things, like a kind of a trauma thing you go through, and you looking back and you raise above it and look down. You're like, I can't believe that happened, and I don't know how I got through that. And it wasn't me. And so that's kind of like, I know people say that, it's I don't know if it's cliche, but it sounds like it. It was all God.
I was going to say, you do know how you got through it now, looking back.
It was all God. It was a daily, like, I would wake up and pray. I would take a break at work and pray. I would have lunch and pray. I wouldn't have lunch with my coworkers. I would just pray.
But you weren't praying for that person to
No.
not drink anymore.
I was like, give me strength.
Yeah.
Like, please help me sleep tonight. Please help me just have a little bit more strength, like 2 more hours of strength. Help me be strength, have strength for my daughter. Help me, remain somewhat peaceful for the day. Help me, connect with my family support committee. Help me, it was just the next right thing. It was it was a daily thing. It wasn't this week. It was every hour, because it was an hourly. I was in crisis mode. I thought this family member lived with me. And it was like, okay, we're locking the doors. These were big decisions. I'm not letting this person come home.
You set some boundaries.
Set some really big boundaries that weren't set before. So I had a mistake where I consider it a mistake now. I didn't know, but, where I let this person come home and it was really not helpful. It would just delay the inevitable, and it was damaging to just everybody involved. And so I learned, and I stayed really, really close to my sponsor. Thank God for her. And, it just was a daily thing. And then it was, he ended up finding a treatment center, on his own and getting to his bottom on his own. I did not research the place. I did not make him go. And he is just doing great. It's been 5 years. And through that process, though, I will say, like I was telling you, it was all God. That helped me. I had to rely on God. It was like, I couldn't do it without. There's no way I was going to keep my job, be a good parent, not sleep all night. I was so stressed out and in so much fear. And it is hard. I'm not so going, oh, it's all God, I was so great. It was super hard. It is hard to lay your head down on a pillow at night, not knowing if your family member is alive, to not have heard from them for 3-4 days, to know that they could be dead somewhere, and to know that you shut the door on them. That is terrifying. And if you are not educated about this disease, and I want to be real clear about this, if you're not educated about this disease, and if you don't have a community of people to talk to you during that's dangerous, territory, because you think that's on you. Like, their life is on you, and that's nobody's, responsibility. And I would not have known that if it wasn't for, Maggie's and the education I got, before Maggie's and through Maggie's. But I'm really grateful for it. I will never forget that. And I know that if it was to happen again, hopefully it doesn't, I have a full support team here. So sponsor, God, full support team. I know exactly who I'd call. And they know they can call me. And so it's a huge asset. So I encourage anybody who, hasn't tapped into this resource to join us.
Yeah. I hear when you're running the family support group, I hear you say, because the people walk in here and they're like, well, I need to get her sober. And I felt the same way. I I just felt like it was my job to get her sober. Mm-hmm. And then when she got a sponsor, I decided I just automatically thought that it was going to be my job and her job to keep her sober, right?
Right.
And it could not have been further from the truth. And people do walk in here thinking that. So now when I look back on my time before I was recovered, it's pretty normal, mm-hmm. right? For us to think that we've got this responsibility,
right?
Because it looks like someone has just kind of thrown their life away, but they haven't.
Right.
They have a disease,
right.
And so if that's the one thing that we can get through to them, that it's not on you.
Right. Right.
Let them back off back up just a little bit, and you might see a miracle, right?
No, I like that you said that, and I love that you said that in our meeting tonight. Just back up and let them, give them space, to work this miracle, and to really, because they need that. That's one thing another thing I'll say, but they need the space to have that, I did this, me and God did this. This wasn't because of you or because somebody dragged me somewhere. Like, they get the pride to know, because their pride has really been leveled, and to get the pride of going, I came here, I did this work. It's hard work. It isn't easy, to change your whole life and to live in a different plane. And they really just get this pride, that they're able to have in themselves and the people around them. And so you don't want to take that from them, and they can share it with you, but you don't want to, get in the way of that. And so I think it's really cool, and that's hard. And so, like I said, it takes a community for them to be able to do that. They're not doing that on their own.
Right.
And it's the same for us.
And their sponsor and their community.
Yeah,
right.
It's the same for us. Everybody's living their life differently. And so I don't think it's realistic to expect family members to change their life all around without a community of support. You wouldn't think an alcoholic would do that either. So it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question for you, and at the end you can add whatever you want if you'd like. But this last question is, I'm so proud to be on the family support committee here at Maggie's House, and if there's anybody like listening, what would you want them to know about the Magdalen House?
Okay, as a whole, or the
yeah,
like
just
yeah. Okay.
What's the things you'd want them to know? Yeah, as a whole.
Oh gosh, there's so much. I mean, its mission to help other women is so pure, you know, and you know, just starting from, you know, the founder to all the people, just trickle down all the people that, you know, work here and volunteer here, and just the board, just everybody, that it's a very pure goal of helping women be sober, and it's really evident in everything they do. It's big book based, which isn't always the case, and it is big book based. You know, they work the steps. They generally, when somebody's here, you know, for their period here, they're gonna work 1 through 3, and they're gonna get a sponsor before they leave. They have programs after they leave that help them, you know, integrate. They have the biggest thing, and we've talked about this a couple of times through this, but this is one of the biggest things, is the community. You know, they are not going to be alone when they leave. They're not going to get back out in the world and go, well, what do I do? You know, they're going to be hooked up with a sponsor. They're going to have a whole team of women that are, you know, sober women that they call their sisters, which, you know, Lynn was talking about tonight. She's recovered, Maggie's girl. And, you know, that's cool. I liked hearing that, you know, that they're sisters, and that's a really cool community to have. They come back here and help. They get to be of service forever. You know, it's not, oh, hey, you're out. Okay, bye. Thanks for coming here. This is a lifelong thing. And it's really evident in the way that they do things here. Their whole thing is outreach. Their whole thing is, let's go tell people about this and get rid of the stigma, like we were talking about. And one of the biggest things that they do here that I love is they really support the family support group. They really are helping families learn. They're all about, you know, the families having education in this too, and that is really helping the alcoholics. So not every place has a family support group. So there's a lot of really great things about Maggie's that makes it really unique. So it's great.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add before we end our podcast? I'm really, you know, like I said, glad you're here, and glad to be a part of this. And
no, that's it. I mean, I'm just really grateful for it. That's the word is just grateful. You know, thank you for asking me. I would just invite all of you to join, you know, in on an online meeting, or listen to a podcast of ours, or even, you know, the Recovered Alcoholics. There's so many cool resources. We're online and we're in person on Wednesdays, and a Zoom on Thursday. Just please join us, because it's a great resource. So, and thank you for listening.
Yeah. So we have meetings. Maggie's Family Support Group has meetings on Wednesdays at 6:30. Mm-hmm. There is a Zoom meeting that if you can't make it in person, and all the information for that can be found on the website. And then there is a in-person meeting that anybody can come to. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that you don't have to have someone in Maggie's House to come to these meetings. Right. We are family support, and that's just basically what we do, is we support families. And we will help anybody that loves or likes or hates an alcoholic, right? And hate's a strong word, I know. But, but sometimes that happens in this disease.
Through those feelings. Yeah.
Yes. And so anybody that needs help, we're here for it. All the information, like I said, can be found on Maggie's website, and along with our phone numbers of all the committee numbers. And we, if you don't want to come to a meeting, just text us and say, hey, I got your number off the website, and I'd like to talk to somebody. Yeah. And we're here. We're here to.
Yeah, it helps us to help you. So we're so glad you're listening. So
that is true.
If you made it this far, you're still listening.
That's true. Well, thank you so much, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you, Laurie, for having me.
This has been Hope for the Family, hosted by Laurie Evans and brought to you by the Magdalen House. I am Diana Miller, host of our Recover Ed podcast series. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Tune in every Wednesday for a new release from one of our 4 series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, please visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels.